Well, in this video, we continue with our investigation of Euclidean geometry. In this specific section, we will investigate what we call same-side interior angles, okay? Interior angles that are within the same side. And so we call them same-side interior angles. They are also sometimes referred to as co-interior angles, okay? So this is what we would like to investigate. Same side what? Interior angles. Or sometimes they are known as co-interior angles, okay? So we're investigating co-interior angles. Well, how are we going to investigate this? Well, we first get with the basic definition of what these co-interior angles are. Now, notice that same side that is on the same side, angles on the same side. So when you look at these two, these are angles on the same side. And also when you look at, for example, if we were given this, it would also be on the same side, okay? For example, if we had this one and this other one here, these same side angles are what? They are supplementary. What it means is that when two interior angles are supplementary, they possibly add up to what? To 180. Now, in one previous video, we investigated what is called alternate interior angles. The first one and this. Then now in this lesson, we are investigating co-interior angles or what? Same side interior angles. Now, what does it mean and how are we going to handle this? Now, as I indicated, we have it that when these angles that we call them co-interior angles add up, they add up to 180. Supposing this one is known, say 45 degree, that means this other one must be 135 degrees, so that at any time, co-interior angles or same side interior angles will add up to 180 degrees. Now, this is the second what? The second angle property inside parallel lines that we are looking at. The next it is other ones. But before we extend our investigation of angle properties into this next three, we will look at some few activities on this what? Same side interior angles. And the activities are right here. Okay. So this is, for example, the first activity. Now notice that this angle is 60 degrees and this other one is 120 degrees. Now the thing which is interesting about it here is that all of them are on the same side. And so we also call them same side angles. And as you can see, this 60, when you add it to 120, you get what? 180 degrees. So yes, they can be represented this way, where the line is slanting as indicated here, or they can be indicated with a slanting line, a line which is slanting forward, okay? This second line is slanting forward. These two angles add up to 180 degrees. Now, let's basically look at the first activity. The first activity, which obviously requires us to determine the value of angle x. We have x here, and we have 105 there. Now, these angles are on the same side. And so we say these angles here are same side angles, or they are co-interior angles. So the first thing we want to illustrate here is that angles, okay? We say the angles x, okay? The angles x in degree and what? And 105 also in degrees are what? Are co-interior angles. Yes, these two angles are co-interior. Now, co-interior is sometimes written with the what? With the dash in between. Sometimes written with the dash in between. So they are co-interior angles. And the other thing about them is that this angle is x, okay, in degrees, and what? And 5 also in degrees. What happens is that they add up to 180 degrees. Now, if this is the case that we are dealing with, then we can go ahead to find the value of what? To find the value of x. Well, what will that give us? To find the value of x, we have to transfer 105 from the left-hand side to the right-hand side, okay? Notice that 105 is on the left-hand side. And so to make x, or to solve for x, we have to make x be on one side of the equal sign, and all the other quantities should be on the other side of the equal sign. What that means is that on this side of 180 degrees, we are going to put negative 105. Why is it going to be negative? It's because once every time a number crosses equal sign, that is moves from one side of the equal sign to another side of the equal sign, the sign before that number changes. That means if the number was having a plus sign in front, the sign becomes minus after crossing the equal sign. If the number was having a minus sign, then the sign will change to a plus after crossing the what? The equal sign. And then this way, we do what? We conclude that the angle x in degrees, in this case, is going to be, well, what is 180 minus 105? That will be 75 what? In degrees. So yes, that is how we would handle activity 1. Considering or identifying clearly that they are on the same side, and that means they are co-interior angles, or they are same side interior angles. And from there, we then go to the next step, that these angles x and 105 add up to what? Add up to 180 in what? In degrees. Then now when we are done with that, we just have to find what? The solution to x. And how do you find the solution to x? Well, the solution to x is easily calculated when we isolate x on one side, just as we have done here, and all the other quantities we put it on the remaining side of the equal sign, which is the what? The left-hand side, rather the right-hand side of the equal sign. That is how we would handle activity 1, okay? This is the solution to what? To activity 1. Now, the next thing we want to look at is the second activity, which is what? Activity 2. Now, activity 2, right here. Yes. Activity 2 is right here. Now, this second activity that we are having here is having x and 50, which is what we should investigate. Now, notice that x in degrees and 55 in degrees, they are on the same side. All these two angles are on the same side, and so we want to call them same side angles, okay? So that is the first thing we want to start with. Therefore, we say, well, the angles, okay? We say the angles x and what? The angles x and 55 degrees are what? Are co-interior, or same side. Yes, that is the first thing. Then now after identifying what angles X and angle 55 degrees are, we then go ahead to translate the statement into a mathematical expression or a mathematical equation. And how would that be? Well, that would mean the angle X, okay, in degrees added to the angle 55, also in degrees, must give us 180 in degrees. So from here, we can go ahead to do what? To calculate for X. Well, here X is going to be calculated when we transfer 55 from the left-hand side here to the right-hand side. That means X will be along on the left-hand side. Then on the right-hand side, we are going to be having 180 degrees minus what? 55 degrees. Now, as I indicated a little bit earlier, when a number is transferred from one side of the equal sign to another side of the equal sign, the sign of operation in front of that number changes. If it is a minus sign, it will become a plus. But since we had a plus sign in front of 55, it will become a minus. Now that will then mean the solution to X, which comes after subtracting 55 from 180 degrees, will be, well, X in degrees is going to be 100 and what? And 25 in degrees. This is going to be the value of X. That is how we would calculate the value of X in what? In the second activity. Now in the third activity, that is activity 3. In activity 3, right here, in activity 3, what we are supposed to do is we are supposed to calculate the value of Y. Now notice that in this case, Y in degrees and 110 in degrees, they are on the same side, okay? And so the thing that we want to put here is that claim that these angles here that we are talking about, okay? The angles, this time Y in degrees, okay? And the second angle, which is 110, also in degrees, are what? Are co-interior angles. They are on the same side. Yes, they are on the same side of what? Of this line which is drawn here. Yeah. And so since they are co-interior angles, the next thing we want to do is to translate. We want to translate this statement into a mathematical expression. And so therefore we say the angle Y, well, in degrees, when added to the angle what? 110, also in degrees. What we get must be 180, also in degrees. Now this way, we can go ahead to simplify the equation so that Y, which is what we are looking for, will be on one side of the equal sign, and all the other quantities, which is 180 degrees and what? And 110 in degrees will be on the other side. Now notice that it's a minus here since it was a plus before. When we move this quantity 110 in degrees to the other side of the equal sign, the sign of the 110 will change from plus to minus. Then that way we can find the value of what? We can find the value of Y. And what is Y going to be? Well, Y is going to be 180 degrees minus 110 degrees. And that will give us a value of 70 in degrees. Okay. Now the next thing we want to look at is activity what? Is activity 4. Okay. to see how we can find the unknown values in activity 4. Now, notice that we could have extended, or we can still extend and find the value of x. Now, x in degrees and 123, they are not on the same side. The only property we can use to investigate them is called what? Corresponding angles, okay? So, well, let's include it. We can say angle x, okay? Right now we can say angles x, okay? And what? And 120 degree, and the 123 degrees are what? They are corresponding angles. Yes, they are corresponding angles. And what is that supposed to mean is that corresponding angles, by definition, have the same value. Well, that means then that x in degrees must be equals to 123 in degrees. That is how we would find the value of x. Now, after determining the value of x, the next thing we want to look at is activity 4. So let's see what we have for activity 4. Now, activity 4, well, is here. We have this angle and the other angle on the same side. And so we say these angles, these two angles are what? They are co-interior angles. So we say the angles, what are they? Well, let's use a bracket for this. Say x as 22, okay. X plus 22, well, degrees. And what? And 2x minus 13, okay. And 2x minus 13, well, also in degrees. Well, what happens to them? Okay, now what happens here is that these two angles are what? Are co-interior angles. Same side, interior. Yes, so now that we have established the relationship between these two angles, we can go ahead to do what? To simplify them. So this first angle here, which is what? X plus 20 degrees, x plus 22 degrees, when we add it to the second angle, and what is the second angle? The second angle is 2x minus 13 degrees. When these two angles are added, what we get must be 118 degrees. Okay, what we get must be 180 degrees. Here, our next step will be to simplify what we have. Now, notice that we can add this x to this 2x. That way, we will get what? We will get 3x. Okay, we will get 3x. And when we add 22 to negative 13, what we get is 9. Okay, we get 9. And so this one will be equal to 180 degrees. That is what we get when we simplify what? The quantities inside the bracket. We do that with the process known as collection of like terms. We group 2x, okay? We put x and 2x together to get 3x. Then we get 22 and 13 together to get 9. Since 22 is positive and 13 is negative, when we add the two, the sum or the result is going to be less than the individual quantities. So this is what we have. Now the next thing from here is to find the value of x. Well, how do we find the value of x in this case? The first step is to isolate 3x on one side of the equal sign, and then everything else, which is 180 degrees and 9, must be where? Must be the other side of the equal sign. This way, we will then have 3x equal to what? 180 minus 9 will be what? 171 degrees. Now, in the next step, we do what? In the next step, we find the value of x by dividing all these quantities by x. So we have to divide 3x by 3. Okay. And later, we also divide 171 by 3. That way, we can be left with only what? We can be left only with x. So we can, well, let's just divide it right away. So we say 3. Okay, maybe the whole quantity makes it much better. So we have to divide 3x by what? By 3. So that the quantity 3 can cancel out. Also what? 171. What do? We divide it by 3. That is 171 in degrees. We also divide it by 3. This way, we can find the value of x. And what is the value of x going to be? Well, x in degrees is going to be, what is 171? Okay, what is 171 degrees divided by 3? Well, let's use our calculator to check what we can get from that. So we want to divide 171 by 3. Yeah, we get 57 for that. So this way we get 57. Okay. Well, sometimes it's a good thing to check if what you have got is correct. So we could check. Okay. Let's just check. To check is to substitute the values you have got in the original equation and see if the result that you will get will be in line with what the theory says. So we have here x plus 22. Now x is 57, so we'll be having 57, okay? We'll be having 57 plus 22. Now we want to add that to 2x minus 13. So we will add it to 2, okay? 2x, 2 times 57, okay, minus 13. We want to see if what we get is what? Is 180. So what will this give us? Well, 57 plus 22 is going to give us 79. Okay, then this quantity here, well, this quantity, which is 2 times 57, is going to give us what? Well, that quantity is going to give us 114. Okay, so we have to add this to 114. Then later from it, we take away 13. What should this give us? Okay, let's check. So right away, we can then use our calculator for that. We have what? 79. 79 that we are adding to 114. And from it, we are taking away what? 13. Yes, what we get is 180 degrees. 180 degrees. So yes, the value we have got is correct. Now we can move on to activity 5. Okay, we can carry on to activity 5. So activity 5 is where we have to determine the value of y. Well, we say activity 5. So in activity 5, we are supposed to determine the value of y. Now, one thing we are seeing is that this angle, y in degrees, and 59 also in degrees, they are on the same side, and so we call them same side angles. So there we go. We say the angles, okay, these angles that we are calling y in degrees. What? 59 also in degrees. 80 angles. Or they are same side interior. So because of that, we can then express this claim in a mathematical formula so that we get y in degrees plus 59 also in degrees to give us 180. Now this way we can calculate the value of y if we isolate y on one side of the equal sign. Then on the right hand side of the equal sign, we are going to be having 180 degrees minus what? Minus 59 also in degrees. This way, we can find the value of y as what? We can find the value of y as 121 degrees. Yes, that is how we determine the value of y. Now, we still have 2 more activities here. So, activity 7 requires you to find the value of z. Then when you find the value of z, you will notice that angle z and angle x, they are what? They are opposite angles. They are the alternate angles. But the most important thing is that the angle z is also equal to angle x. Then now angle x and y add up to 180. So that way you can find the value of z, x, and y. Then for the next activity, which is activity 7, we are supposed to find the value of angle A and angle B. Now notice that angle B and 660 and 68 degrees, these two angles are what? These two angles A and B are same side interior angles. And so they add up to 180. Now you can from that determine the value of B. Now notice that the angle 68 and A are alternate. They are like the same. They are like opposite. And so angle A equals to 68 degrees. That way you determine the value of angle A after finding the value of angle B. And that marks the end of our discussion of today, which is about what? Which is about co-interior angles. Now notice that co-interior angles is also known as same side interior angle.